I'm here tonight with Brooksie Wells and Billy, tell me your last name, I'm sorry.
Gewin.
Billy Gewin, who is co-producing Brooksie's newest CD, which is coming out this July. So I want to talk to you a little bit, Brooksie, about where you came from, because you have a really fascinating past.
I do.
So tell me a little bit about some of the civil rights movement that you came up through and kind of where your love for music came from. Just tell me about who you are.
Well, I'm from Georgia. I was born at Emory University Hospital, and my father was a lawyer in the Air Force when I was a little girl. So I lived in Africa as a small child and traveled around the world. And when my father came back, the civil rights movement was very much a big part of what was going on, and he changed professions and became a Unitarian Universalist minister, and was in Selma, Alabama with Jim Reeb, who was murdered actually.
Right,
and my dad was with him the day that he died, and was beaten to death. So the civil rights movement was very personal for our family, and what I did was partake of the music culture that surrounded that. We were living in Washington, D.C. at the time. My father went to Howard. He was the only white man in his class for theology school.
Wow.
And so we got involved with that movement, and then afterwards the anti-war movement, the Vietnam War movement. But what accompanied all of that were people like Pete Seeger, Mike Seeger, and all of the folkies were doing these wonderful anti-war songs, Joan Baez, and those were the songs that I came up on. In addition, people like Bob Dylan. And then who really affected me was James Taylor.
Yeah.
James Taylor and Carole King. And so when the singer-songwriter movement started, I just loved that work. And I went to school in New York City, actually in Long Island, right outside the city, moved into Manhattan, and actually got a deal with Bobby Darin, of all people.
That's pretty amazing.
I know, it was awesome. And some guy came to my dorm room and said, "Do you want to make a record?" And I said, "Okay." That was how it was done back then, A&R. A&R means artist and repertoire. And in the old days, people actually came and did that for you.
Yeah.
They came and looked for you, and then they helped you. So I was signed with Chapel Music, which is now Chapel Warner, I believe, for a 3-year contract. And then Bobby Darin died.
Oh, wow.
6 months in. And I didn't have a mentor, so things were a little hectic. I ended up in a band called Kid Creole and the Coconuts. They were very famous worldwide, as a matter of fact. We did their first album at Chapel and moved to Z Records, and Tommy Mottola, who managed Hall & Oates, managed them. So I just got lucky and got to sing with all these different people, got to meet some of the best players in the industry, because Chapel Music had an in-house studio. And back in those days, nobody had home studios. There was no such thing. So people like Paul Schaefer, people like
Paul Schaefer, who played for the Tonight Show Band.
for the Tonight Show Band, and they would come do their demos there, or they would play for demos for you. And those were that was the quality of musicianship that I was used to.
Wow.
So it was awesome. You know, Paul Rivera, who else was there? Lionel Hampton, James Brown. I mean, everybody would come in at one point or another. My favorite was Alan J. Lerner from Lerner and Lowe, who wrote My Fair Lady.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Got to meet him, and he told me his favorite song was The Street Where You Live.
Oh, that's a great song.
I know.
Yeah.
So as a lyricist, you know, to have that opportunity. And then, but things got crazy in New York, and I moved back to Virginia where my parents were, thinking I'd stay a few weeks, and ended up getting married to my drummer, having 2 wonderful children.
It's always the drummer.
I know, it's always the drummer. Well, we're not married anymore, but we were married a long time, and he's a nice guy. My kids are healthy and great, and when the kids got older, just a few years ago, I got back in the music business as a solo artist for the first time.
Wow.
So I'm like a newcomer, even though I have all
Even
this
though you've
experience
been
in the
in it.
business, and I've got a lot of recording experience, which is why I love to make records and record
Yeah.
records and produce records. But as a solo artist, I'm just now getting my feet wet, just now getting in and being able to be heard, and I'm really working on building a bigger audience.
That's really exciting.
That's what I want to do.
So tell me about, you talked about your A&R person kind of coming to your college dorm and saying, how do you do this? So how did they hear you? How did that happen?
How did they hear me?
Yeah.
They were walking around the dorm and heard me
Really?
sitting with my guitar, just playing. And I wrote a song called I'm So Sick of Waiting for You to Say Goodbye. And that was recorded by John Lennon's band, Elephant's Memory, was my backup band.
Wow.
I swear to God.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's who they hired to play. I didn't know who they were. And, you know, I come in and, I had a very cool cool childhood in the music business.
That is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome, so.
So coming from that kind of a background, and this is kind of a random question, and from your past with writing this many songs, it may be hard, but what's your favorite song that you've written so far?
I think the one I'm going to sing for you tonight, Northeast Rising Sun.
It's a great song.
Thank you. The reason being is that I've been wanting to write it for 30 years and couldn't. And finally, it just came to me all of a piece. So I've been looking at that street sign when I'm driving from New York, going, I want to write that song. Finally, I got to write it.
That's a great line. I can hear the hook. I mean, I can see how that hook would
Yeah,
catch you.
just caught me. I wrote another song, though, from Nashville. I was in Nashville. Big sign. Get hammered, get nailed. So I have a new song, which we are not putting on this record, but it's called Hammered and Nailed.
That's great.
I know,
That's
I'm
great.
like pulling songs
You know
off
what?
of
What's
Sweet
funny
Songs.
is I've actually heard there's a couple of artists I think who have been through Nashville and seen that, because I've heard a couple of different people say, yeah, I've got a song about this hammered and nailed thing.
Hammered
So
and nailed, exactly.
there you go. That just begs for a song.
I know it does.
That's great. So coming from the songwriter's background, what is some advice, anybody that might be wanting to come up in the business and start writing songs, what would be your greatest kind of one nugget of advice that you would give them?
English courses.
Really?
Really, really. The music part, and that's a whole nother kettle of fish, but lyrics are important to me. That's where I come from. I come from the lyrical space. Although I played piano since I was a little girl, I played guitar most of my life, and I love the music, but I really like a great lyric because I'm a storyteller more than I am an accomplished player. I'm really more want to tell a story. So really understanding the language and being able to have a big vocabulary and use language well. My mother was an English teacher, so she'd be real proud of me. So that's kind of what I think as far as that. I have my 3 rules, the 3 Ps, which are passion, persistence, and professionalism.
Yeah.
And that's how I do my work.
That's fantastic.
With passion, with persistence, and professionalism. And Billy will tell you how persistent I am. I'm annoying.
Relentless.
Relentless.
That's great.
But
That's great. You kind of have to be if you're going to be in this business, I think.
Exactly.
I don't think you can be a wishy-washy kind of a singer and,
You
and
can't.
player.
You can't.
So what if you had kind of one challenge that you faced? What is the biggest challenge, especially coming from someone who had a mentor and had that A&R representative just come to you initially to be able to come back into it from a different perspective? What has been your biggest challenge coming into it the second time around?
Technology, without
Really?
question. The big challenge for me, because when I came in, we were still using tape. We were still analog. There was a microphone in the center of the room, and the background singers moved around. That was how it started. And so I would do whole pieces. You couldn't fix it. You just had to do it. Now you can do all these wonderful things, and I'm thrilled. It's not that I'm mad about it. I love it, but I don't understand it as well as I could. It doesn't come naturally to me. And the technology extends out into the way that music is disseminated to the public. It doesn't make sense to me. And I'm really trying to understand it so that more people will get to know me, because I didn't come up this way. You bought a record. That's how people found out about you. You heard it on the AM radio, and then you heard it on the FM radio. And today, you hear it in all these different places, like this wonderful blog that you're doing. All these other places is where the music is coming. How do we do it? How do we stay professional, and how do we make money?
Yeah.
No idea how to do that, but we'll figure it out.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Absolutely.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Huh.
So what inspires you when you talked about just the sign on the way back and forth to Manhattan, the one sign that kind of hooked you, but is there something in life that you constantly go back to that just inspires your songwriting that you find?
It's almost always love. And I wrote a song that said almost every song's about unrequited love. Just about every song that I've written. Now, not all, and I avoid political discourse because it's, my family came from that, and I let them do it, and I stick pretty much with one-on-one. I call it kitchen table music, where we're one-on-one, and this is what happened to me, and I tell you what happened, and then you tell me whether you like it or not, and or whether it's happened to you.
Yeah.
That's really the key to all that for me. So I think as far as what inspires me, my children, my love of the art, love of the sound of the music. I love the way it sounds. I love the way, and guitar playing. I love acoustic guitars. Oh, I just love the sound of it. So I can't think of anything I'd rather do than just listen to really good music.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. So, you talked a little bit about your past. Now I want to talk about your present.
Okay.
Talk about your album.
Uh-huh.
So, where did this album? Is there a theme, an overriding theme besides just the love that you've talked about, or is it just kind of these songs that you felt like these are the songs that need to be sung now?
I think there is sort of a theme. One of the themes is the more acoustic component, where the songs read well as mostly just guitar and bass. There's not a lot of drums. So from a stylistic standpoint, it's more of a folk record. So it's kind of returning to my roots.
Cool.
Part two of that would be I've had a broken heart. And when my heart broke, I needed to write it out. And I was saying this earlier, I had to write it out. And once I do, I start to feel better, and then I realize life goes on. So I kind of wrote it out, and I hope it's not too depressing. But I think every woman and man have been through these phases in life, where things starts to happen. So that's pretty much the deal, and I hope people can relate, and of all ages, that the songs. I also try to write for a feeling rather than for my quote-unquote generation, because I hope that it doesn't matter how old you are, you can still really feel what I'm writing.
So how did you and Billy meet?
We met through a mutual friend named Jimmy Galloway, who also plays guitar and writes and sings. And he was doing a gig at Steve's Live Music. And after that gig, he came over. He was working in the studio on an EP that I run, and he brought Brooksie with him one night.
He did.
That's great. So do you kind of remember that moment where you went, oh, this is somebody I'd really like to work with? What was the kind of spark there?
Well,
I think I think it was when Brooksie started to help direct a vocal session that Jimmy was doing. And,
somebody else's vocal session, and you started directing it.
he asked.
Well, there you go.
She had a lot of good ideas, and also she gave me a copy of her previous record, and from that I could tell that we could make a really good record together, and so she happened to need one, and I had the studio, and got a good report from Jimmy. I take it.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Wonderful.
Yeah, Jimmy said he was great. And Jimmy Galloway is one of the best guitar players in Atlanta. He's an awesome player, made some great music, and he said, come and hear this vocal session. And I walk into this house in Tucker, Georgia.
The hip and
Now,
exotic land of Tucker.
The hip and
right.
exotic land of Tucker. And I'm thinking, yeah, this will be interesting. And it was amazing. And that's what is also so interesting about music today, is that tucked away in the middle of what appears to be nowhere
In Tucker, Georgia.
Is this great little studio with everything you need.
Wow.
And I had people flown in. I mean, people did come in. My son, as a matter of fact, plays the little bit of drums that we do, some djembe and a couple of kits. My son is a drummer. He's also getting his PhD in physics.
Wow.
But he's in Philadelphia in a band called Arizona Lights.
Oh, cool.
So he came down from from Philly, and played for me. And then we got Bo Emerson, who works for the Atlanta Constitution as a reporter and a writer, and he's amazing, but he's also kick-butt horn player.
That's great.
So he played horns, and then we got Cindy Lou Harrington.
She sang harmonies on a couple of songs. We got Shannon. What's Shannon's last name?
I can't think of it right this second.
It starts with an H, but she's a brilliant R&B singer, and she came to sing. And
She works in a bank, and I met her at the bank, and I said, I need somebody to do the song with me, and she said, well, I sing, and she's amazing.
That's awesome.
And she's on this song called No Notion that I think is going to be a really interesting take on an African-American woman and a white woman meeting and being friends, and that's called No Notion. But the track, it has horns on it, it's kind of reggae, it's really cool, and she just sings amazing vocalist, really killer. So Howell, Shannon Howell is her name, and I just saw in my mind, I finally pulled it out. So she's awesome. So that's pretty much everybody that's played on the record. And Billy played everything else. He played acoustic bass. He played all the guitars. He played banjo. You played
Well, whatever needed getting done.
Yeah.
Lots of hand percussion.
Yeah.
That's great. Do you find that as an engineer and having your own studio, you end up kind of filling in the blanks along the way?
All
a
the
lot?
time. I mean, actually, people might sound like a big job to play all those instruments, but most of the parts are simple, and so it's really a matter of just having good time and organizational skills. And but it's a good resource for the people who come in because they need a lot of parts, and they don't really. It's not practical for them to hire a percussion player and a lead guitar player and somebody to play bass. And so I do end up filling holes for a lot of people who come in. It's actually the best part of the job for me.
That's fantastic. Yeah, you get to use a little bit of that artistic skills aside from just the adjusting here and there that comes with the engineering, which can be tedious, I would imagine.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
Except
push.
it's wonderful.
Yeah.
The mix, I'm going to say, you asked what the key to this is, the mix is the key. The mix is what people who are making their own records don't know how to do.
Exactly.
And if you can get someone like Billy, who has a real understanding of sound, of the science of sound, then it becomes a whole nother kettle of fish because you can, I explain in artistic terms, well, I want it to sound kind of round, and he knows how to actually
knows how to make it
turn
sound
that
round.
into round, and
That's right.
that's not something I know how to do. So it's kind of awesome. Sometimes our language skills, get in each other's way a little bit, because I don't always say what, make it fatter, and that's, right? Yeah, that's what we do.
It happens.
But he figures it out, and then I'm like, oh my God, that's so awesome. So I know,
great.
it's a good thing.
That's fantastic. So who have been your inspirations? You talked a little bit about James Taylor.
Mhm.
Is there anybody kind of in the current realm of art, of music, that you go, oh, that's somebody who just really, I listen to that person and think that's somebody who knows what's going on?
I'm a huge Christine Lambert fan. I am a huge Christina Aguilera fan when it comes to vocalists.
Vocalists, yeah.
Those girls can sing. And I'm also a Gwen Stefani fan, believe it or not, and Pink. I love Pink. When it comes to, I like pop rock girls that can kick it and are out there doing their thing.
They're strong women.
They're strong women. Now, when it comes to sort of people that have influenced me, people like Tracy Chapman,
Yeah.
people, who else do I love like that? Alison Krauss. I'm a huge Alison Krauss fan because she is a great player, so she uses her music as an instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a new best singer, her name is Tana Alexa. She has a new record out, and she's from Croatia.
Wow.
And she is Antonio Sanchez's fiance. He did the drums for Birdman, that movie.
Yeah.
Brilliant, and she's a jazz singer, so that she uses her voice as an instrument, and a lot of it there's no lyric, it's just an instrument. Incredible stuff. So I like new, interesting jazz things. I also love anything bluegrass because I like the picking. And the other person who played on my record, that's a big surprise, but I'll tell you guys, don't tell. Frank Sullivan from Frank Sullivan, The Dirty Kitchen. He was Grammy nominated this
Cool.
year for his album, and he played mandolin on 4 tracks and a fiddle track.
That's
for
pretty
me.
awesome.
I know his wife, she makes beautiful jewelry. So
Helps to know somebody.
it's always, I know their wives or something. That's usually how I get them to play. I'm like, okay, I'll call their wife and see if they'll let them play on my record. So
That's fantastic.
it's been pretty fun.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So where can we find your record when we go to look for it?
It will be on iTunes, it'll be on CD Baby, it'll be on Amazon when it comes out. And the cool thing is that it's going to be released on 500 radio stations nationwide. Hopefully August 1st will be the release date for that. And they will be folk stations. So if you listen to like your local college folk station, I will be one of the people that they will be considering to play the record. And I'm hoping, my last record, I was blessed that it did chart for 11 weeks. And I beat Dolly Parton 1 week.
That's pretty amazing.
I did, but only on the Roots charts, so Dolly, you got nothing to worry about. But it's been pretty great to be heard. I just want a bigger audience,
Yeah.
I
Don't
really
we all?
do. Don't we
Yeah.
all,
We just want to be heard.
I know, and you sing beautifully, by the way.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, you're welcome.
So should we be pushing you to like Garrison Keillor to get you on Prairie Home Companion, that kind of stuff?
I know them,
That would be awesome,
That
wouldn't
would
it?
be awesome. I would love to do something like that. But you know who I just realized who I could say is the person that I emulate sort of the most is Arlo Guthrie.
Yeah.
Because I like to tell a story and then sing a song about it.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of a girl version
Yeah.
of Arlo Guthrie.
Well, and actually, some of the folks in the audience, when Billy started playing, that was immediately the thought that came to mind was, this sounds like an Arlo Guthrie song. This is great, which is a compliment because we all love Arlo Guthrie.
Yeah.
But just those stories and the ability that both of you have to tell those stories. So I'm excited about hearing this album and all the stories that you have to tell. So that being said, would you guys mind picking up your guitars and playing a little bit for us?
We'll be happy
And
to.
tell us a little bit about the song that you're going to play for us.
Okay, well, I thought since you were interested in the Highway Sign song,
Yeah.
that we would just go ahead and do that one because I might have to stand up. Let's see.
Here, and I'll step out of your way.
Okay. There we go. I feel like I'm at the Tiny Desk concert. You know how they do the Tiny Desk concert? Wow.